started that business when I was 21. It's a full service modelling agency. We currently have, 500 models Australia-wide. I didn't pay myself for 2 years. I just absolutely sunk everything into the business, killed myself working, and then just reinvested all of the profits into the business to be able to make it viable.
Taryn Williams is one of Australia's most successful female entrepreneurs. From launching Wink models to building the right fit, she's led the charge in creating empowering platforms for talent and brands alike.
They could call and be like, oh my God, we need someone this afternoon, can you make it happen? I would be like, I will make it happen. I will single-handedly, if I have to, I will drive there, pick the model up myself, drive her to your shoot. But I was also very conservative in reinvesting every single cent back into the business for the first 2 or 3 years.
And what do you feel like made the different influences of talent successful?
You can't just look at someone and go, that person's going to be a successful talent. What really sets a good model and a great model apart, and same with creators, is...
Taryn Williams, welcome to The House Story.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to dive in today. Do you want to kick us off and just tell me a little bit about who Taryn was as a young girl?
Oh gosh. Okay, we're going all the way back.
Back to school.
Look, I think my parents would tell you I was probably pretty determined, pretty stubborn, a strong-willed child. So I think that's probably inherently ingrained in me. And I think I was probably also really curious. I liked trying and exploring new things. We moved around a lot when I was young. So I grew up in Fiji, of all places.
Oh, wow.
Far North Queensland. I moved to Canberra for uni. I was born in the Barossa Valley. So I sort of lived all over the place.
How many schools?
3, 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, and so I think that probably prompted some of my curiosity and exploration and also probably my ability to build networks and be comfortable in different situations. So.
And were there any subjects at school that you were drawn to?
I was actually a massive nerd at school. So
Really?
I totally, yeah. I loved school. I was super academic. I thrived sort of across the board. I was dux of my high school.
Okay.
I really loved school. I actually really enjoyed, and this is probably what I struggled with when I was trying to decide what I wanted to do at uni is I equally thrived and loved maths and chemistry as much as I did English and economics and business. So it was sort of, I didn't have a clear path coming out of uni what I really wanted to do. So I studied politics and international relations, random.
Oh, wow.
There you go.
Yeah, right. In Canberra?
Yeah, at ANU.
Yeah, wow. Okay. And was there any reason why you chose to do that or just...
I think I probably thought I was going to be a diplomat, if I'm honest.
Wow,
I knew I
right.
wanted to travel a lot. I knew I wanted to live all over the world, and I was really interested in politics. And I probably just wanted to have quite a adventurous and interesting life. So,
wow. And take me to your first business.
Wink. So I started that business when I was 21. It's a full service modelling agency. We currently have, 500 models Australia-wide.
Wow.
So...
Biggest in Australia?
It's a good question. I don't know. Would probably be close.
Almost.
If it's not, yeah. Predominantly commercial models. So we do, the big TV commercials for Qantas and Optus, print campaigns for Rio Tinto. We do fashion brands as well, like the Iconic and Maya, but predominantly sort of commercial campaigns is our sweet spot.
So how did you jump from your degree in Canberra to Wink? What's the...
Yeah, so I modelled myself for probably 6 or 7 years, and I just saw so many inefficiencies and inequalities in the industry. There was... probably the main thing people don't understand is usually models get paid once the agency gets paid, which can take sort of 60 or 90 days. So unlike pretty much any other employment in the world, models are expected to wait until a client pays the agency pays them. So I just thought, that's crazy. Why do they not just get paid fortnightly or monthly like any other career? That's got to change. And I think probably I was 21, blissful naivety of youth. I just thought I can build a business. I'm going to start a talent agency that treats everyone with decency and respect, pays them on time. It's really supportive. We go above and beyond for our clients and also for our models. And so that was sort of the premise. And I thought I'll build this and I'll bankroll all of the cash payments myself and figure it out. And that was 19, 20 years ago.
Wow. How was that? Because it must have been, there's a reason most other agencies were probably paying on 60 or 90-day terms. That would have been a big shock, I'm assuming, to a young person to try to figure out the cash flow side of that.
Yeah, it was really hard. I didn't pay myself for 2 years. I just absolutely sunk everything into the business, killed myself working, and bankrolled payments. So, and then just reinvested all of the profits into the business to be able to make it viable.
Were there any scary moments?
No, thankfully I was really lucky in that our clients loved what I was trying to build. So they were really on board. They knew that if the agency succeeded, they would have a pool of great models who would go, didn't change their payment terms, right? So there was no skin off their nose. And then they knew that if the agency succeeded, they would have these fantastic models who would go above and beyond because they were getting paid on time, they were getting treated really well, they were being cared for, like we really looked after them like a little family. So they were like, great, we really I can see how much this girl cares about building this business and building this agency. And, I would work 24 hours a day, like 7 days a week. I was available. They could call and be like, oh my God, we need someone this afternoon. Can you make it happen? And I would be like, I will make it happen. I will single-handedly, if I have to, I will drive there, pick the model up myself, drive her to your shoot. I really bent over backwards. So they really appreciated that hustle. And so, it was... There wasn't any moments where we got really close, like from a cash flow perspective or anything like that. But I was also very conservative in reinvesting every single cent back into the business for the first 2 or 3 years to make sure that.
And why did you decide to do that?
To scale the business, yeah. So to allow us to be able to onboard more models and grow the business and build out like tech platform, website, digital marketing, all of those things.
And how do you go about getting big contracts with big brands?
Oh, look, I think I had a pretty good little black book from my time modeling myself and had, really spent a lot of time networking, building relationships. I would always follow up with clients and photographers after a job and thank them. Thanks for having me on set and all of those things. And so I was pretty well plugged in the industry, even though I was quite young. And then I was an absolute hustler. Like I would go on LinkedIn, I'd go on Google, I would look up production companies, PR agencies, marketing managers, pitch to them, reach out. This is our offering. Here's our brand Bible. This is what we do. This is how we could help. Can we get some models in for a go-see? So I think an equal amount of building good relationships in advance, being very clear on what our USP was, like how we were different, and then absolutely hustling and putting my back into it to make sure that we close those deals.
And how did you go about doing or making your first hire?
So I think the business got to a size where there was a lot of roles that I brought in early that were like contractors, like bookkeeping and fractional CFO and things like that. But hiring my first full-time team member, the business was at a size where I knew the only thing blocking us from scaling to the next level was having additional resources internally to be able to manage different elements of the business. So bringing in another booker was like the one that made sense for us automatically. And it was super scary, obviously, because you're like, okay, this is a fixed overhead cost that I can't get rid of quickly if it doesn't work out. But I sort of sat down and I did the sort of metrics on it and figured out, okay, this person needs to book X number of jobs at X sort of average order value to make it viable. And do I think I've got a pipeline of opportunities ready for them to fill? And once I felt comfortable with that there was that opportunity there for them, then it sort of felt like I de-risked it. I wasn't hiring blindly going like, maybe this will work out. Like maybe they can go out and sell. I was like, I've got a pipeline of leads. I'm pretty sure as long as they can close, sort of 60% of them will be good and they'll be able to cover their salary and anything else is upside. So
yeah, wow. And so you grew that team to how many people?
So it was 7 people in that business. So the reason we can scale to that number of models on a really low number of full-time staff is because we have a centralized tech platform, a custom tech platform that I built about 12 years ago for that business, which manages availability check, scheduling all of our talent, all of the onboarding process is automated, right through to like timesheeting, payroll, Xero integration, pay slips, the whole 9 yards. So that was how I ended up getting into tech.
Yeah. Why did you decide to do that? Like why build a software platform for
it was all being done really manually, like a lot of businesses. So like models would send in a timesheet at the end of their jobs and then someone would have to open Excel document and look and see if there was overtime and then raise an invoice in Xero to a client and go, there's been 1 hour over. Like it was just really manual and that sort of blew my mind. And we had obviously the industry is quite fast turnaround. So clients would call and say, like, we've got a shoot tomorrow. We need to know who's available with, these measurements, this height, this hair color, whatever it might be. And so then we would have to get on the phone and call models. Are you available for the shoot tomorrow? What's your availability? Can we have, which obviously if you're doing that at scale doesn't work. So I was like, okay, there's got to be a better way to do this. Why can we not use some sort of tech platform to check availability? I knew that it would have to manage the onboarding process as well for the data to be correct. So like obviously sizing and height and photos and measurements and skills and location, all of those things had to be inputted into a tech program. And then I needed to be able to query that in real time with the talent. So being able to send real time push alerts or SMS that they would be able to respond to, yes or no, I'm available, for us to be able to present that back in a package to a client really quickly. So I knew, purely because there was other tech platforms out there for other types of industries, you confirm with your hairdresser or you can, confirm a flight. So I was like, okay, I know this technology exists. Why can't I build it for our industry? Why is there nothing available like this for any kind of, at the time, any kind of freelancer talent? There wasn't a platform available. There's now obviously marketplaces more like an Airtasker or an Upwork for that kind of opportunity, but there wasn't a custom platform for an in-house, like a white label solution for us. So blissful naivety of youth. I was like, I'll build my own. And I'll just, go out and find an agency and build it from scratch.
Yeah.
So yeah.
How was that process?
Really painful. Yeah. It was really hard. I'd never built a tech company before, so I didn't have any idea about. I went out and I got 3 competitive quotes, same as if I was building a website, I guess. I was like, I'm going to get 3 competitive quotes and like see who I like working with, speak to some of their other clients, okay, pick an agency, build this product. But obviously I had no idea about building an MVP. I look back on that build now and I'm like, my God, it is actually so complex. Like it actually has so many moving pieces, like timesheet approvals, file management, it builds comp cards, like it does a lot, like payments, like the whole 9 yards. Anyway, single touch payroll. Like it was a crazy build. It probably didn't need to be that complicated, but I was like, I'm going to build this, this thing that's going to completely streamline the business. I'm going to solve every single problem. And instead of probably recognizing there was some off-the-shelf tools that we could just integrate into, and that only some of it needed to be custom. But it completely transformed that business. So it was a long and painful build and very, very, very expensive, because this is like 12 years ago, right? It was insanely expensive to build. But it transformed that business.
And so take me into the right fit. That was the next step.
That was the next business after that. That's right. So after building that business, I was like, oh my gosh, I should have built this tech platform to be open source for clients. Because at the moment, the client would have to still contact the agency and say, we've got this brief for this shoot. We want this type of model. The talent booker would then build the job in Wink Central, and it would send out to the talent, and then they would manage the infrastructure through the platform from there to send it out to a client. Here's your package of options, X, Y, and Z. And I was like, oh, why didn't I just build this for clients to be able to use directly? Like it actually doesn't need an agency layer. All it is, us inputting the details on their behalf. And so obviously agencies add a lot of value in, helping you quote a job, understanding the nuances of rates and usage and all of those things. But so I went to go and see a bunch of clients and said, like, look, if I built a platform that is like a freelancer, it was just around the time Freelancer had launched. So if I built a platform that's like Freelancer, but for creative talent, photographers, models and actors and influencers and stylists and makeup artists, would you use it? Would you actually would you be comfortable bypassing an agency? Would you be happy doing the negotiation and liaison directly with a talent and managing that piece directly? Or do you need the third party to do that? So I spent a lot of time this time doing sort of user research first before going out and deciding to build it. And this time learned, definitely build an MVP. I went and sort of built a bunch of wireframes, took them to clients and said, like, this is kind of what I'm thinking. Same on the talent side. Like, I went to see a bunch of photographers, makeup artists and models and said, this is sort of what it would look like. And you could get these automated briefs and you could tender on them. And in the right fit, very much like an Airtasker or an Upwork, the contracts and is handled in the platform. Money's held in escrow until the job's complete and then released out to talent. So I was like, we would build and maintain all of that part, but you would be responsible for the communication on both sides. And once I sort of had enough of a sort of confidence that people would use it, I then hired an engineering team internally and built it direct.
Yeah, wow. And did you have a lot of learnings that you had from the first software platform that you built?
Yeah. So this time I knew a lot more about like not going and just building features from day one. I was like, okay, I'm going to build a really quick and dirty. We built the first platform in WordPress, which at the time people thought was nuts, right? Like, I mean, it's so much more flexible now. But again, this is like 10 years ago, maybe longer. So people were like, oh my God, you cannot build it. And I was like, no, I'm going to build an MVP in WordPress, just see if I can get a proof of concept that people will actually come and post jobs and that talent will respond and that, you know, we can manage this piece before I go out and build a completely custom platform from scratch. So I'd learnt a lot the hard way the first time from going, okay, instead of going and building all the fancy bells and whistles and, you know, features and functionality, I was like, I'm going to build a really quick and dirty MVP. Once it's working, I'll go and reinvest in the business and actually build out a custom platform, a lot more features. So it was a very, very different build that time. Like definitely it was the kind of thing that you launch and you're like, oh God, this is almost cringe. Like it's so basic and clunky and certainly not sexy. But, you know, I needed to make sure that we had that proof of concept first.
Yeah. And the Right Fit exploded in popularity. Why?
Yes.
How did you make that happen?
Oh my God, it was like an uphill slog. I wish I could say there was some sort of silver bullet overnight success. There was absolutely not. It was really, really brutal. So marketplaces are super hard. You've got to build both sides of the marketplace at the same time. And we were in somewhat geographically constrained as well, unlike some marketplaces where it doesn't matter if your graphic designer is in Pakistan or in Sydney, we obviously need to have models and photographers and makeup artists geographically where the job is located. So we almost had to go city by city and make sure that we got supply and demand right in each market before we launched in a new market. So that was really, really hard. And it was at a time that in some ways benefited us. There was a shift towards more digital content and social content, a shift away from sort of TVCs and big print campaigns, like the type of content brands needed was changing. That was beneficial for us in some ways in that they were looking for new ways of working. They were budget constrained. They had to do these like fast, nimble turnaround projects that weren't traditionally suited towards a big production company or a big advertising agency. So that kind of helped us in some ways. But it was also a time where there was a lot of education needed because brands were like, we want to do social content. We don't know how. We want to work with influencers or content creators or do UGC. Like, what does that even mean? How do we do it? So we were kind of having to educate clients at the same time as building a marketplace and trying to get that liquidity point right. So
I remember actually, now that you're saying it, I remember many years ago that we used to use the Right Fit price guide for influencers.
Ah, there you go. Yeah.
That was like, I almost feel like that set the standard in this country for like influencer pricing.
Yeah.
Because so many like agencies like us were then using it downwards.
It was such an interesting time, wasn't it? Where like it was really, everyone was still figuring it out. Like influencers themselves were like, I don't know, like how much do I charge for a reel? Like, you know, and it was the wild, wild west. People were just kind of picking numbers. Yeah. And it's good to see there's been like some sophistication in the market now where brands aren't just caught up on vanity metrics of like, oh, someone's got like 200,000 followers. That's amazing. They're like, what's their engagement rate? Where are their followers based? What gender are they? What age brackets? You know, so they're, you know, understanding a little bit more about like the things that they should be looking into before deciding if that person's right for them. But yeah, it was a really interesting period trying to build, like educate, build the market, build understanding and build the marketplace. So
yeah. What advice would you give to another SaaS founder or someone wanting to start a marketplace?
Oh yeah, definitely do a SaaS business. Don't do a marketplace. There's a reason that Hashgifted, my next business, was a SaaS company. I think marketplaces are really, really hard, and I think you've got to deal with preventing leakage, like people taking jobs off platform, dealing with repeat rates. So we would go out, have amazing meetings with clients. They'd be like, this is life-changing. This is an amazing platform. Like, we love it. Like, oh my God, this is going to be like transformative for our business. And then 3 months later, you'd see that they've booked a job through a traditional talent agency or through and you're like, hey, what happened? They're like, oh, I totally forgot about you guys. And you're like, So it was like having to stay front of mind, thinking about leakage, like marketplaces are really, really hard. So I think probably I think you have to, it's a winner take most approach. So like you have to build that defensible moat. You have to get supply and demand. Like by the time I sold the company, we had 17,000 talent and 11,000 clients. Like,
Wow.
that was a defensible moat by that point. It would be very, very hard for another marketplace to come into APAC and build out a talent creative marketplace and compete with us. But that took a lot of heavy lifting and a lot of work and a lot of cash.
And you chose to go for venture funding?
Yes.
Why?
Yeah. So I probably funded the first maybe $600,000 of the company myself. So the first build and probably first, 8 months of runway.
It's a big risk.
Yeah. And I was very lucky in the sense that I had a cash flow positive business that I could use to fund that. But also, yes, there's the opportunity cost of what else could I be doing with that cash, and also diversifying the risk a little bit. So I really wanted venture capital investors that could open doors for us and that had deep domain expertise in marketplaces, because I'd never built a marketplace before. I'd never built a tech company before. And I wanted people who had been on that journey before, could expedite our growth, and also could just fuel. I knew I had to build this defensible moat of, supply and demand side on both sides. So I knew I needed to do that quickly. There was the risk of competitors entering the market. And so raising venture capital for us made the most sense in terms of being able to do that quickly, being able to scale out the team, operations, marketing, just really throw fuel on the fire.
And with hindsight now, do you think you'd do that again?
Yeah, our venture partners were amazing. They really got in the trenches with us and delivered a lot of value and really, really helped. And I was very lucky to have an amazing board who, there was so much I didn't know. You don't know what you don't know, I think, when you're building a business. It was so different to Wink. I thought, I can read a P&L, I know how to put together a strategy deck. I know how to do board reporting. I'll crush this next business. But building a tech company, a high growth tech company, is so different to building an agency. Could not be just chalk and cheese. So there was so much that I didn't know. And having venture partners who had done this before, who'd seen so many marketplaces, who could even just answer things like, I don't know, what's a good repeat rate in a marketplace? I have no idea. What sort of, acquisition costs should I be looking for? And just all of those sort of things was so helpful to have. But it definitely, increased a lot of the challenges in the business as well, because all of a sudden you're spending, 2 days a month reporting to a really, really serious board. That takes time. You're spending a lot of time in investor relations. You're spending a lot of time in capital raising. We raised 3 rounds of capital. So that takes time. You're out there doing roadshows, building IMs. It's a different type of business once it's venture backed.
And what do you feel like made the different influences or models or talent successful?
Oh my gosh, it's such a good question, because there's such a difference between, you can't just look at someone and go, that person's going to be a successful talent. I think I've got an eye for who would have the bones of being a successful creator or a successful model, after 20 years in the industry or whatever. But
Yes.
What really sets a good model and a great model apart, and same with creators, is work ethic, professionalism, that they're very much like probably any other career. You've got to work hard. You've got to be responsive. You've got to be professional. You've got to be on top of your admin. You've really got to go above and beyond. We've got models at Wink who will be out there organising their own test shoots once a month, updating their portfolio, making sure that they've always got fresh shots in their book, following up with clients and saying, thank you for having me. I really appreciate the time. I'd love to work with you again. All of these little soft touches that, make a booker's job easier in securing them more work and make a client want to rebook them, making sure that they arrive 20 minutes early. Same with creators. It's a client books you for a reel and 3 stories, but you provide them some extra content, or you give them some guidance on hey, I know you've said that you really want a reel, but I actually think this is going to perform better as a carousel, or why don't we do a giveaway, or, why don't we do a drive to get people to sign up to the newsletter? Just adding that additional value, going above and beyond, providing them insights afterwards and saying, hey, look, I see this kind of messaging really resonated for the brand. If you're going to do future campaigns, I'd think about how you could incorporate that. So I think that there's, that really sets great creators and great talent apart, that going that extra 110%, being super professional, really delivering, really caring about, treating it as a business. They are businesses, they're little mini media powerhouses. So
yeah, that's what I was about to say. It's almost like a business.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And so what about common mistakes?
Oh gosh, there's so many in this industry. I think for models and sort of actors, talent, anyone in that space, not understanding contracts, not understanding usages, signing up to do campaigns that they don't really understand could be ruling them out of a whole bunch of future work in market, like signing an exclusive contract in a category that's going to rule you out of like all travel brands in the future, you know, hotels, flights, you know, any kind of accommodation. Like I've seen it all over the years, and I just think, oh, it's such a shame that they just haven't been educated, so they don't know, so they're not, you know, maybe super educated in how to read a contract or what clauses to look for. So that's probably one of the biggest mistakes. And also probably just thinking passively that you can sit back and that work will find you, and that, you know, you don't need to be out there on the front foot updating your portfolio. You know, we just went through and did a big review of talent portfolios at Wink, and going through and going, okay, like we work with a lot of health and wellness brands. Like it's obviously a huge growth market in Australia and internationally. Looking at our talent portfolios and going, do they have images and videos in their portfolios that speak to that? Like, do they have exercise content or photos of them, you know, doing yoga or, you know, drinking green smoothies, things that can really help a client go, I can picture that talent in that campaign, like making it really easy for a client to make that decision and walk to that decision without needing to be, you know, needing to look at a high fashion image and go, oh, could that girl be in a wellness campaign? Like just really simple things like that. So I think, trying to sit back and be too passive. I think for creators, probably the biggest mistakes I see is getting caught up on vanity metrics, like thinking I've got a really high number of followers, therefore I can demand really high rates, as opposed to being strategic and going, well, actually, you know, I'm pitching to, I don't know, let me think, a female clothing brand. What percentage of my audience are females in their target demographic? What's my engagement rate? How can I put together a compelling data-driven offering for that brand that says, you know, I've got, of my 50,000 followers, 32,000 of those are females in your target age category. You know, I've got a 3% engagement rate. I could put together this kind of campaign. Here's a projected ROI for you. This is what I think it could look like. Here's how I can drive value for the brand. Again, almost being passive and expecting campaigns or opportunities to come to you without really understanding the needs of the purchaser in that decision. Like they're always going to have to present back to their boss or marketing manager or whoever it might be, client if they're a PR agency, like here's why we're parting with $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 for this campaign. This is what we're looking for. This is what we can deliver for you. So helping them make their lives easier, I think really sets a good creator apart.
Yeah, and adding value.
Yeah. And also just being easy to work with. Like the number of creators I've worked with over the years that take 3, 4, 5 days to reply to an email, who deliver content late, or who don't meet the brief, who haven't read the brief, and you're like, did you, you know, there was keywords that needed to be used or particular captions, or and you're like, oh, this is so frustrating, like makes everyone's life harder, and you can guarantee a client and an agency will never work with you again.
And so if I'm someone that's brand new, fresh, really wanting to break into this space, become a model, let's say. I'm not going to become a model, but...
Oh, damn it, come on. There's always time for a career change.
I don't know. If I wanted to break into the space, what would you be telling me to do?
Firstly, go and do Online Model Academy, my new business.
Yes,
would definitely be my first piece of education. And I think do a lot of research and understand what's out there, you know, in terms of being a model, for example, it's a physically demanding career. Like you're shooting winter in summer, summer in winter. It's long shoot dates. You've always got to be ready. Shoots often get decided at the very last minute. You know, you might get a day or 2 days notice to have to...
Is that tight? Wow.
Yeah. Usually, sometimes there's no good reason for it, but usually there's, you know, a pre-production time frame that a brand is working to. So, you know, they're casting and then they're into shortlisting. They've got to present them back to their final client, get sign-off, do wardrobe checks, all of those things. And so it can be fast turnaround jobs. You've got to be flexible and nimble. There can be really quiet periods, like January is very, very quiet. No one's shooting. There's seasonality. You know, April is also really quiet because there's lots of public holidays and school holidays and things like that. So, you know, you need to be adaptable. So I think understanding that and really, you know, getting to know yourself. Can I, you're going to get a lot of rejection, right? Like that's simply a part of the process. You're going basically for job interviews every single day when you go to a casting, and you're going to get told no a lot. And that's nothing to do with you as a person or you as a model. It's just that you're not going to match every single brief that's out there. So can you deal with that? Is that something that, you have the emotional robustness to deal with? So
it's probably tough to be positive when you keep getting told
yeah,
no.
Yeah. There's a lot of work that goes in behind the scenes to build your portfolio, invest in courses and training, and making sure that you present well on camera. That you can, especially for models who do acting work or TVCs, where you need to be able to play a role and change characters. And so there's a lot of sort of development work behind the scenes before you start regularly booking jobs and it becomes a viable career.
And then how do we get to Hashgifted?
Yes, so that was my next baby. So we had
got a lot of babies.
Oh, I know. It's crazy. I've got to stop. We had a lot of clients coming to The Right Fit. The Right Fit's a marketplace, so we take a commission off every transaction. Whereas we had a lot of clients coming to The Right Fit who had amazing opportunities, like really cool hotel stays or trips overseas or awesome fashion gifting, but it was contra. So they were unpaid opportunities, not paid opportunities. And they were like, but we've got, this amazing, full collection of makeup from Max Factor or whatever that we'd love to gift to a creator in exchange for some content. And there were creators that would love that. And we were like, ugh, but we can't charge a percentage of the hotel stay or a percentage of the makeup. Like there's no cash transaction here. So that was the sort of nuance. I was like, oh, there's an opportunity here. Like I'll build a really simple business for brands to be able to list what contra opportunities they have and creators to be able to opt into what they would like to receive. Because at the moment, how it was being done was brands would send out unsolicited products and services to creators that they had postal addresses for. So, if you were a top creator, you would just get hundreds of parcels every week from PR agencies or brands. And you're like, I don't want this. I don't need this. It's, doesn't align with my values, or it doesn't fit me, or it's not my, style. So I was like, there's got to be a way for creators to be able to opt in and say, yes, I'd like to try that makeup, or yes, I want to receive a fashion outfit from you, and this is the outfit that I want to receive. And for brands to be able to say, hey, here's all of the stuff that we've got to gift. If you're interested, instead of having to slide into a creator's DMs and say, hey, can I gift you? And they're like, no, I charge, $2,000 for that. So just removing all of the friction points in the process. So that's where the idea came from. Built it out. So from a creator side, it's like a dating app. They can swipe left and right onto products and services that they'd like to receive. Brands sign up, they list their opportunities, they can connect their Shopify store if they've got a Shopify storefront. They receive all of the applicants. When they book people, it automates the order.
That's amazing.
And then when a creator does any posts or stories on Instagram, posts on TikTok, anything like that, it automatically captures all the content into the platform so they don't miss it. And then they can use it for reposting on their own channels or turning into ad sets and all of those things. So just tried to streamline the process.
So is it a bit like a bartering system?
Yeah. So basically the creators can really easily see what the products and services are, and they can say, yep, I'm keen to receive it, or no, I'm not. And then they can, if the two parties match and they start chatting, they can say, yeah, I can do a reel for that, or I can do 3 stories or whatever it might be, or a TikTok video, or even like just some UGC content for you. It's not always like a post on social media, or I can do a written testimonial. And then the brand goes, yep, that's great. We're happy to receive that, and book them in.
Yeah, wow. And has that gone well?
Yeah, so it's nearly 18 months old now. And yeah, it's been a wild ride. Like I really didn't expect, when I launched the business, I really thought it was predominantly designed for smaller brands and PR agencies who wanted to do high volume gifting at scale. And I really didn't expect, we've got some real like top tier leading brand like Estee Lauder, H&M, like GHD, like top international brands using the platform, who just saw it as a much more streamlined way to do their gifting, to find unique creators, smaller creators who are maybe not on the database of a PR agency, allow them to do that discovery piece and find, we need someone with curly hair for this particular straightener, or we need someone with, I don't know, oily skin. Like it allowed them that diversity to be able to find authentic creators that matched every single gifting opportunity. So yeah, it's been it's been pretty crazy.
Yeah. And so how did you come up with that concept, and like why jump into another? I mean, you've got 2 other businesses already.
I know.
Why did you then decide, hey, I'm going to load my plate even more?
I know,
and
it's
go for a
nuts.
third one?
I have an amazing team at Wink, so I don't spend any time in that business. It's, it's nearly 20 years old. It's got systems, processes, a tech platform, and an amazing team that make all the magic happen. So that business doesn't take up any of my time. And then I was in the last 12 months of my exit at TRF when I started Hashgifted. So my intention was actually to take a sabbatical and take time out, but got sucked back into doing another business. Guilty as charged. I probably am a bit of a workaholic. So, and then, I could just see the need for it in the market. And I thought, I'd love to build it. I knew it would solve it solved a pain point for me of being sent unsolicited products. And I knew it would solve a pain point for our clients. So I have a great team in that business that sort of make all the day-to-day happen, which sort of frees me up to sit on the board and think about, international expansion and what's next and build other businesses. So.
Yeah. And so, Taryn, what does it take to, I suppose you've kind of removed yourself from Wink altogether, and I think you've done that a few times in a few of your businesses now. Yeah. So what does it take? Like, what do you think it's taken for you to learn to remove yourself?
Oh, it's really hard. It's really hard because I think founder energy can't be replaced. Like having a founder in the business every single day, driving the business forward, like that is irreplaceable. You can't ever expect to get that through, even the very, very best CEO or general manager. So I think you have to understand and accept the business is never going to grow as quickly as it would if I applied myself 110% to one venture.
Why is that?
I just think that founders, well, not in every case, but usually founders have started the business because they have a deep domain expertise and a deep understanding of the problem and pain set of the customer base. And in my case, like I've worked both as a talent and as a booker and as an agent. I've worked as a creator and an influencer, and I've worked brown side working with influencers. So having that nuanced skill set and expectation management, I think, makes building a business like Gifted faster and quicker and easier. And I've also got 20 years of experience in the industry and sort of 10 years of experience in building tech products. So understanding what a product roadmap should look like is very easy and quick for me to be able to do, as opposed to a product manager who maybe doesn't have domain expertise and knows how a creator is going to have to look at a particular interface or what needs a PR agent is going to have versus a marketing manager at a brand. So it's faster and easier for me to grow a business, but it also comes with the opportunity cost of not being able to work on other projects. So again, it's that sort of trade-off of, would I recommend to every founder to go and have lots of businesses? Absolutely not. Like your time is best spent in building and scaling one business and focusing on that and getting it to a size. Well, depending on what the end goal is. Like with Wink, the goal was never to have an acquisition. It's my firstborn. It's my baby. I love that business so much, and it's a fantastic business. And it was never the intent to grow it and scale it and sell it. But when I was in the right fit, I was 110% in that business, and the goal was very much to grow that business, scale it, and exit it. And so once I came out the other side of that, it obviously afforded me the opportunity to take a step back and go, okay, well, now I have financial security and I can go and work on a number of different projects, figure out what, where my passion points lie, and then put people in to run those businesses. But it's certainly not easy. It's not easy to find great people. It's not easy to scale businesses when you're not in the day-to-day and across every single element. Yeah, it's not easy.
Do you have any hiring tips?
I think just spend a lot of time with people before you hire them. Like that whole adage of, hire slow, fire fast, I think, really resonates. I think you need to see someone in a multitude of different situations. And I think really getting them to try, especially for senior roles or, leadership roles, really trying to get them to answer and articulate real problems, how they would solve real problems in the business that you're working on right now. So, whether that's like getting them to put together a marketing playbook for international expansion or, a go-to-market strategy or, how they would solve a churn problem, whatever it might be, like getting them to solve a real problem in the business and present it back to you so you can understand their thinking, how they would tackle problems and also just how they work. Are they do they go and do a lot of deep research before they present back? Are they inquisitive? Are they curious? How responsive are they? Do they deliver on time? What's their critical thinking like? How data driven are they? So I think you get to see them in real time if you do lots of, I guess, sort of tasks and things in the lead up. And I think just getting to understand their values, their drive, what they see in the opportunity, what they're excited about, what they bring to the table. But I also think you can't see a lot until someone is in and has their feet under the desk. It's really hard.
Yeah. And do you have a preference for qualification versus attitude or a healthy balance?
I think qualifications are pretty outdated these days. I think there's so much you can learn on the job. I mean, especially with AI, I would hire anyone who has, I think some things technical understanding is really important to me. So even in a non-technical role, I love people who are hey, I'm a marketer, but I've got deep domain expertise on, data analysis, or, this is how I like to think about, the effectiveness of my marketing strategies. They're technically minded. So I think finding and hiring for those sort of strengths, because I think anything else you can train, but someone who's curious, inquisitive, technically minded, data driven, has a really good work ethic, and is excited about the opportunity. I think those things they can't be trained.
And how do you retain good talent?
I'm pretty visible and transparent with our teams about what it's going to be like working, because a startup is a very different beast to working in an agency, obviously completely different, or any kind of traditional business. So pretty transparent in the lead up about working in a startup it's hard, it's all consuming, you're going to wear many hats. The company direction is going to change, 20 times in the time that you're here. You need to be adaptable. You need to be nimble. You need to put in 110%. You're not always going to have a clear manager with, who's able to oversee you day in, day out, going checking in on you, making sure you're okay. You're going to have to be a self-starter. So I think people that join and have clarity on that really thrive. They love the autonomy. They love the ability to, wear many hats, work on many projects, throw themselves in the deep end, learn lots of new skills. So I think that helps retain people. I'm also very transparent with them throughout the course of their time around the business, how the business is performing, KPIs. They all have equity in companies when they join a startup with me. So they are a business owner. They have equity in the company. So they're incentivized to work really hard, to deliver great outcomes, to think creatively about, I don't have all the answers. Just because I'm building the business, I don't have the answer about the best way to acquire customers or reduce churn. So, that they're bought in and they're going, hey, I've had this idea about how we could maybe solve this thing. And they're thinking like a business owner. They're bought in, they're excited. And I don't think there's any sort of silver bullet solution in terms of do more team offsites, or I don't think that there's think you need to find the people that respond to that type of culture, want autonomy, care about what they're building, and have a vision for building something bigger than individually you could build on your own.
And how do you decide how much equity to give away?
Combination of things. So time that they join the business, how early in the journey. So the earlier you join a startup, obviously the higher the risk, so more equity you get. Level of seniority that they're joining at, and then the cost, the opportunity cost of salary. So if we're taking someone who's coming from a $350,000 salary to join us at $150,000, then there would obviously be a higher percentage of equity that they would be getting than someone who, is leaving a $150,000 job to join a $120,000 job. So a combination of those things. They always get the opportunity to trade cash for equity as well. So they can say, I'd like to take, $150,000 salary and less equity than I would take, a $90,000 salary and higher equity. So giving them that ability to make a trade-off as well.
Can I ask what kind of percents? Just for as an example.
Yeah. So we always put aside a 10% ESOP plan when we start a company. So employee shareholder option plan. So it's always a total of 10% that we start with. And then that would be allocated out to, obviously you want to try and keep you can't give it away all at the start. So you wouldn't give like, your first hire like 5% equity because you're going to go through multiple fundraising rounds and you need to keep equity for all of your future hires. So someone might get a really, really, really senior hire might get like 1 or 2% equity. A more junior hire might get 0.5%, depending on, again, at what time they join the company and how much those shares are worth. Because obviously once you've raised capital, there's a benchmark on how much those shares are worth, how much the company is worth. So you can really tangibly articulate to them like, we're giving you, $50,000 worth of equity today. That's going to be worth X amount of money in time.
And so how did you go about deciding to exit TRF?
So we'd been pretty aggressively approached by 2 groups who wanted to buy the company over sort of a 2-3 year period. And we'd had a lot of back and forth with them on like, this is what it would need to look like. These are the terms, We could just never sort of get there on the number. And so the last time they'd approached us, I was like, look, this is the number. This is what it needs to look like. This is the deal terms. And once they came back and were like, yeah, okay, I think we can get there. We're close enough. We then decided to run a full process. So hired an M&A advisor, went to the market and said, hey, look, we're going to run a process to sell the company. Here's what it looks like. This is an exec summary and an IM if you're interested in hearing more and run a full formal process so that we had competitive tension, the best bidders around the table, obviously to maximise shareholder return.
Which one of your parents are you more like?
Oh, probably my dad. My dad was probably a bit of a workaholic as well. So I think I probably got that from him. Probably more like my dad, I'd say.
Are you competitive?
No, I don't think so. I don't have. I love seeing people succeed. Like one of my, I mentor a lot of people. I invest in a lot of startups. I love helping other people succeed, and like I'm a big networker. I meet people. I met someone yesterday, and I was like, oh my god, like I think if I put her and her together, they'd like build a really great business together, or they'd really really vibe, and something would come out of it, or it would help her career. And I get nothing out of that. I just really enjoy the satisfaction of seeing other people go on and like build awesome careers and thrive. So no, I don't know. I don't have a sort of competitive streak, I don't think.
What do you think is your strongest trait?
Probably identifying gaps in markets, looking at a market and going, hey, there's an opportunity here that's underserved or underutilized or a problem that could be solved. And probably building networks and relationships, like building a very strong relationship base across different sectors over time and maintaining those.
And where does that come from? From dad?
No, I don't know that I saw it demonstrated growing. I think it's sort of inherently inbuilt in me. Maybe it comes from like modeling at a very young age. I started when I was probably 14, 15, like, wow. And having to build relationships and networks to build a viable career. I don't know. It's certainly not so. I've got like a personal CRM that I maintain of like people that I need to meet with like fortnightly, quarterly, monthly, yearly, when I last spoke to them.
For your personal network.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Just like
that's amazing.
A sort of mental data dump of like, these are people that I've met who I find interesting or inspiring, who there's maybe no commercial upside in it, but like someone who just really inspired me or that, I really found very interesting. And so, I keep this complex. I wish I could say it's, in some sophisticated CRM, but it's in a Google spreadsheet, and I just go, okay, God, yeah, wow, I haven't spoken to so-and-so in a while. I really need to touch base. So.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So do you feel like entrepreneurship is like you're born with it, or do you feel like it's something that you make of yourself?
I think some of the traits can be learned. Like there's certainly, like being data-driven, being analytical, there's certain parts of being an entrepreneur I think you can learn. Looking for market trends, those things you can definitely learn. I think some of it, like risk appetite, work ethic, grit, tenacity, I think you're maybe like born with. I don't know that you can learn those things. You either sort of have them or you don't.
And how do you possibly balance all of these different businesses as well as
I
staying
don't.
healthy? And
I don't. I wish I had, a silver bullet solution to that. I absolutely don't. I actually just cancelled the meeting that I was supposed to have after this because I was like, I host a networking dinner for 4 times a year called the Season Opener with a dear friend of mine who's an entrepreneur. It's like 40 of the most interesting people that we've met over the last quarter, and we hosted it last night. And I'm just so far behind the 8 ball on like stuff that I've got to get done by tomorrow. I've got a whole bunch of I just got back from Abu Dhabi, got a whole bunch of stuff that I need to do on the back of that presentations from that trip. So I was like, I actually can't spare an hour to have a coffee meeting with this. Can we rain check? I'm really, really sorry. So I don't have balance. I don't have I don't have a solution to that. There's some non-negotiables. Like I'm pretty good with exercise. Like I try and exercise most mornings because that's really important for me to have clarity and to execute well during the day. But I go through periods where I'm like, I've got all of this time and I'm going to like start new businesses. And like, I was like, oh my God, finally I have time to do Online Model Academy, which, is something that's been like burning in my brain that I've wanted to do for a long time. And now I'm like, oh my God, I don't have time to sleep or eat or, so
that's amazing. And so how do you then typically, are you into the ice bars, the whole that sort of biohacking thing or not?
I'm very into longevity and biohacking. I take a lot of peptides, a lot of supplements. I try and optimize. I wear Aura Ring. I optimize my sleep. Like I very, very into that. I'm not into ice baths. I just can't do the cold. I'm weak. I always say I have no grit and tenacity when it comes to ice baths. I'm like, this is cold. I'm getting out. I do love saunas. I wish I had one in my house. I don't. But yeah, I try and prioritize things like long walks. I do a lot of yoga and Pilates. I wish I could say I was better with like meditation and mindfulness. I'm absolutely not. I do have a big LED red light that you can't do anything else while you're laying under it. So I lay under that and like listen to podcasts. That's probably the closest I get to any kind of like meditation or mindfulness.
How did you get into that?
I went down a big deep dive of like things that are really good for longevity. So peptides, saunas, red light therapy, and decided, right, I'm going to buy one for my house. And I love it. It's probably just the one time a day I stop and don't do it. I'm not, not on my phone. I can't email. So I'm like, forced downtime, I guess.
Yeah, that's awesome. And take me to, so you're currently about to launch OMA.
That's right.
Tell me a bit about that.
Yeah, so it's something I've wanted to build for a really long time.
Why now?
And online, I thought I had time.
Okay.
Technically, I'm not working. Technically, I'm, I don't actually have gainful employment. So technically, I was like, I've got time to finally do this. My businesses are all running, everything's good, everything's stable. So I thought, okay, I'm really going to run at this, and I'd wanted to build it for a long time. There's no formal education or training for models or aspiring talent. And I thought, if I can get some industry leaders together and we can impart all of our knowledge to the next generation of talent coming through, like it would just set them in such better stead for, having a great career moving forward. And it would benefit clients, like whether that's agents, whether that's people booking talent, that they would have talent coming into the industry who are informed, understand the business behind modeling, know how to show up on set, know how to nail it, just all of those things that makes both parties' lives easier. So, I sat down and sort of mapped out who are the people in the industry that I really, really respect, who have had amazing careers, who I would personally love to learn from. Reached out to them and said, hey, I want to build this thing. Will you come and do it with me? So, so like we've got Danielle Ragnard, who was the previous head of IMG in Australia. So she's part of the course. Jez Smith, who's like a world-renowned fashion photographer, shot for like Vogue Italia and Harper's Magazine. He was one of the hosts of Australia's Next Top Model. Natalie Rosa, Simone Holtznagel, who are 2 amazing Australian models who have shot for like international brands, walked in fashion weeks all over the world. Max May, the makeup artist, Jack Bedwani, who produces most of Fashion Week, both here and in New York. So I just went and sort of reached out to all of these top industry leaders and went like, okay, would you do this thing? I think it will add so much value to the next generation, and you've got so much knowledge in your brain that, for your 20 or 30-year career that you probably don't realize is so invaluable to people. Can we, get all of that out of you into a masterclass?
Yeah, that's phenomenal. And so who should be signing up to this? Like who are you targeting?
Yeah, so anyone who is contemplating becoming a model or is a model at any point in your career, even if you've been modeling for 5-10 years, there will be content in there that is so invaluable for you from these people. And I also think it's really applicable to lots of other sort of creative industries. You know, if you're a content creator, any kind of freelance talent, because it goes a lot into the business of modeling. So understanding contracts, understanding usage rights and arrangements, things that are applicable to how to get rebooked on a job, what clients are looking for in terms of like professionalism, responsiveness, all of those kind of things that are applicable to any industry. So yeah, if you're a parent of someone who wants to become a creative talent, if you are a creative talent yourself, if you're thinking about cross-pollinating from, you know, you're a creator and want to do some modeling work, or an actor, anyone in that kind of space.
What are the key sort of topics that it's going to cover?
My gosh, so there's 66 modules. We've
wow.
really,
Okay.
tried to cover everything. So everything from so we've got a whole segment on catwalk. So how to nail a catwalk, what you need to understand when you're casting, how to walk, where to look, all of those things. Makeup and grooming, so how to look after your skin, how to do makeup for castings, what you need to have in your kit. Building your personal brand, so how to develop your social media channels, how to stay true to yourself, authenticity, all of those things. Mental health and wellness, so we've got a big, obviously a big part of being a talent is getting told no a lot, being turned down. So mental resilience, how to look after your mental health, how to switch off. Physical health and wellness, so diet, exercise, all the things that you need to be doing to keep yourself like physically, you know, strong and looking great, ready to go anytime if you get called up for a job. Photographic modeling, how to get an agent, what to ask an agent, how to perform on set. Like we've really tried to get contracts, usages.
So it's jam-packed.
Everything. Yeah. Everything all in one place was the goal.
And when is it going live?
So hopefully in 2 weeks.
Okay.
So
Which, June?
No, hopefully before the end of May. The goal was to launch during Fashion Week, which starts next week. So runs for nearly 10 days. So hopefully before the end of Fashion Week. So hopefully before the end of May.
And Taryn, aside from May, what's next for you?
Oh, it's such a good question. I'm still having my existential midlife crisis, so I'll let you know as soon as I figure it out. I don't know. I really, really love building businesses. I'm really excited about OMA. I think Gifted's still got a lot of growth left in it. I actually have, been spending a bit of time with the Wink girls in the last, all of my team are female in that business purely by chance. Over the last sort of month, which is really nice, just thinking about the future of that business, because AI is really going to transform how that business operates and what talent do in campaigns, how their data is used, how their visual likeness is used. So spending some time thinking about that and then looking at, what else is out there. I'm really deeply interested in AI. I did a Harvard course last year in strategy and AI. So looking at opportunities in that space, looking internationally at what might tickle my fancy to go and work on next.
Yeah. What do you think the impact of AI is going to be on modeling?
Oh my gosh,
talent?
It's going to on the entire creative industry. All industries, obviously. We had an AI speaker at our dinner last night, and he was saying, everyone's so concerned about the creative industry, oh my God, photographers and talent and art directors and videographers or whatever, creative directors. He said no one cares about all of the developers and engineers who are going to be also out of work, with AI. You're not going to need it. And I was like, well, that's such a fair point. So obviously it's going to disrupt all industries, not just the industries that I'm involved in. But obviously I care about those ones the most. So I'm deeply curious to think about how it's going to impact the type of content we consume. What will social media be like? Will people still use Instagram and TikTok if all of the content is AI generated? How will we read and ingest our news? How will we search for information? We probably won't Google things. We'll probably, already I think 8% of discovery is done via ChatGPT. So are we going to be using, LLMs instead to do product discovery? And is that going to give us better outcomes? How will that impact marketing? So I think models and creative talent are a portion of that I'm interested in figuring out if there's a way to leverage the data and information that we have at Wink into building a new type of agency, potentially. H&M have just done, I don't know if you saw, they've shot and created all of their next campaign using models but through AI. So they shot the models, the real human beings, but then trained LLMs around those particular models and have licensed their name and usage and likeness, and will use them to create content moving forward without the human person being involved. So,
do you think models and influencers should be worried about AI?
I think they should be aware of AI, and I think that, you know, there's that saying that, you know, AI won't replace human beings, but it will replace human beings who don't use AI. So I do think that holds true. I think if you're a content creator, it gives you more tools and more options than ever before. If you're a model, same. Like, you know, your name is your name and likeness. Your brand is your name and likeness. So it gives you more opportunities to go and build ways to commercialize that. But you have to know how to use it, and you have to be thinking critically about, there are going to be some things that don't exist anymore. Will brands still shoot e-commerce? Probably not. Like, are they going to get a model in every single day to shoot front, back and sides of T-shirts? Probably not. So, like, there's definitely going to be a big disruption, and I think you want to be at the forefront of that, and you want to be embracing it and figuring out how to adapt your career around that.
Taryn, is there anything you feel like we've missed today?
Oh gosh, no, it was such a good interview. Really, I don't know. You've really covered so many different aspects.
Yeah.
So
We've got an exciting journey. Is there anybody that you think you couldn't have done this all without?
2 mentors that definitely went above and beyond for me throughout my career, that got in my corner. One who was formative at the early stages of The Right Fit, when I knew absolutely nothing about building a tech company. He was an American entrepreneur. He'd won it all, lost it all, won it all, built multiple companies, exited multiple companies, lost it all again on other companies. And he was so formative in helping me understand some of the things that I needed to be thinking about in building a sustainable long-term business for exit, and getting into the minutiae with me of, like, I'd never hired an engineer before. Like, what do I even need to look for? How do I KPI someone? Like, how do I build a really robust engineering team? So he was phenomenal. And then the chairman of my board in the last sort of 3 years of The Right Fit was an amazing personal mentor, taught me so much about leadership, thinking about my own skills, my weaknesses, calling me on a lot of my bullshit, you know, being able to, like, hey, I see repeat patterns here. Like, I can see that this is coming from, like, a place of fear, or, you know, why are you making that decision? Or, you know, even down to things like, why are you making these decisions in, you know, not having a balanced life? Why are you so all consumed on work and not thinking more sustainably about, like, longevity, like the longevity of you as a person and your career and other aspects of your life? How much of this is ego driven, you know? So I think those 2 people really, really shaped my career and who I am today.
And how did you go about finding them?
One came from someone I'd been to see when I was prototyping The Right Fit, and I'd reached out cold reach out on LinkedIn and said, can I have 30 minutes of your time? He was a CTO at a major e-commerce brand in Australia, and I said, like, I'm building this thing. I don't know how to build a payments gateway. I've narrowed it down to these things, but I really need your advice on, like, can I have 30 minutes of your time? I just need to understand. I can see you guys use Stripe. Why did you go with Stripe and not PayPal or you know, Braintree or any of the other payment gateways out there? Can I, you know, pick your brain for this particular thing? And it sort of evolved into a much more holistic conversation of him being like, you're also missing this, and why haven't you thought about that? And I was like, oh my gosh. And that sort of just led to him becoming a mentor of mine, eventually actually joining my board. And then the other was an investor and board member. And so was heavily incentivized for the company to go well, but was just someone who has a deeply curious mind, and who I think really he could see how hard I was working and how much I cared and how much I wanted the right thing for shareholders, for our talent, for our clients, and that I was killing myself for this business. And I think he, you know, really wanted to see me succeed, not just professionally, but personally as well. So, yeah, I don't think there's a lot of people ask me, like, you know, can I just reach out to someone and be like, hey, will you be my mentor? And I'm like, it doesn't work like that. Like, you really have to build rapport, understand if they're even going to be someone that, you know, fits well with you and that you can add. Has to be a mutually beneficial relationship. You know, you have to both be adding value to each other's lives, and it has to evolve and change over time. So I don't think it's I don't know, I've never seen like a mentoring, I'm not saying it might not work, but like a mentoring marketplace where you can hire someone and pay them to, I don't know.
Yeah. Taryn, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh my God, thank you for having me. I love this chat.